The man was about to freeze to death, but instead of putting on a coat, he took off his pants. He curled up naked in the snow. Because of the cold, he kept breathing into his hands, but the little warmth did not help, and soon he started shaking. Even then, he didn't plan to put on his clothes. Instead, he looked at the plastic bag in his hand and made a painful decision. He trembled as he poured out all the flour, then filled the bag with snow and pressed it to his chest. He hoped that when the snow melted, he could drink the water. But by evening, the snow had not melted. Even worse, his wet clothes were still not dry. The man became angry. He had gotten lost while skiing and had fallen into a lake. Then he saw a house on the top of a mountain not far away. After being trapped on the snowy mountain for 2 days, he finally saw hope. To save energy, he put on his wet clothes, curled up between the rocks, and planned to climb up the next day. When he woke up the next morning, the snow in the plastic bag had melted. His phone and radio were still working. Seeing the house in the distance, he happily walked toward it. But as time passed, the sun became too bright. He hadn't eaten for 3 days, and his vision grew blurry. Finally, he fell and lay on the ground, gagging. After resting for a while, he stood up again. He walked with his eyes closed to stop himself from getting dizzy. When he thought he was close to the top, he opened his eyes. But there was no house. Then he realized the house he saw yesterday was only an illusion. Hope vanished again. Still, he decided to keep climbing. At night, he found a cave and discovered a skeleton inside. He wanted to find some meat, but the wolves had already eaten it. Just then, his phone died. To make it worse, the sound of wolves howling grew closer. He had no choice but to leave and walked all night. Soon, the pain in his legs made him fall. He saw that his socks were soaked, and his calves had turned dark purple. If he waited longer, his socks would stick to his skin. In pain, he tore the socks off. Then, he carefully peeled the flesh stuck to them and put it in his mouth. But it was too disgusting, so he didn't eat it. He put it in his pocket instead. Suddenly, he heard a helicopter. He shouted for help, but he was deep in the forest, and the helicopter didn't see him. It flew away. The man lay on the ground in despair. In a daze, he saw his mother's face. He couldn't imagine how she would live without him. After 8 days trapped, he regained the will to live. He ate the piece of flesh. Looking at the steep mountain ahead, he decided to climb. He crawled forward slowly, inch by inch. Every few steps, he took out the radio to check for a signal, but there was still no luck. He kept repeating this again and again. Finally, he reached the highest peak. Excited, he pulled out the radio, but there was still no signal. He couldn't believe it. He crawled farther until he reached the very center of the peak. Still, there was no signal. The battery dropped from 5% to 4%. The man became calm. He lay on the ground, turned on the recorder, and said goodbye to his family. Then he slowly closed his eyes. What he didn't know was that, at the very last moment before it shut off, the radio finally caught a signal. Soon, a helicopter appeared above him. After 8 days of being trapped, he was finally rescued.